Welcome to Insights from the Couch. I'm Colette Fair here with my co-host Laura Bowman. We're excited to talk with you again today about happiness. What happiness really is, not that toxic positivity bullshit, real happiness and how you can have more of it in your life based on the brilliant research and teachings of Arthur C. Brooks, professor at Harvard University. You're going to want to hear what we have to say because we're going to boil it all down into actionable items you can harness from this day forward to live a more meaningful, fulfilling, and happier life.
Yay!
Yay!
This is the result of our field trip. We took a field trip.
Yes, we went to the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, which is here in Florida where we live. And Arthur C. Brooks, who is this legendary researcher on happiness, right? He's had his own quest in life, his own struggles with depression. So he became curious about how can I be happier? And this has led to a fruitful career. I think he's published 13 books.
One with Oprah.
Yes, the latest with
like,
Oprah. He's no schlub, right?
Top of the mountain right there.
Yeah, and he's kind of one of the most well-known happiness experts, I suppose, in terms of, what's the secret and the art to happiness. So we want to share what we learned with you and also our insights as therapists.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I think I was shocked to know is that 50%, he says that 50% of our happiness is based on our genetic set points.
It shocked you that it was that high or that low?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't.
But which way? Which way? High or low?
That it was that high.
Okay. See, I found it low. I was thinking it was more like 80%.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, that stands to reason because they've done all kinds of studies where it's like people who've won the lottery or lost a limb. And then, they test them like a month out, 90 days out, eventually happiness levels return to baseline. Which
is fascinating. And really what we're saying here is that yes, genetics play a role, meaning that you have a genetic set point for happiness. So like Laura's saying, if you win the lottery, you're going to be thrilled. I mean, at least I would be.
For a day.
Then eventually, right.
Or two, maybe a week.
I think it's going to be longer than that.
I wonder how long you get, like 6 weeks?
I think I'd be pretty high for a while. But, and just how many people I would immediately tell to fuck off is like, that alone
would be so joyous.
Seductive, yes. But since that's not happening anytime soon, the reality is even if I won the lottery and it solved a lot of my problems, I would soon return to however I am. And as a therapist sitting with so many clients over the years, I've had clients who have stage 4 cancer and their mindset is so positive and powerful, not fake positive, like really seeing what's important in life that it's blown me away and I've learned so much from them. And then I've had clients that, their garage door, and this is made up, their garage door isn't working and they're just like in a state of complete abject despair. Yeah. So a lot of it is how you are. But the good news and what we want to talk about today is that other 50%, about 25% of it, Dr. Brooks says, is circumstance, but the other 25% is habits of mind, how you live your life. We actually have a lot more control and agency over our mindset and how we experience life than we may think. And so we want to really funnel into that part about what we can control and leave you with a couple of things that could be life-changing.
Yeah, that feels right. I think habits are that beautiful place where you have so much agency over your life and making it better.
Yes.
I've seen that in my own life. Just having simple habits are so grounding, like just walking.
Yeah.
Like my walking habit is so
huge.
Grounding.
Well, and that's actually been proven that walking clears the weeds in your head. It boosts mood. I mean, walking's a freaking antidepressant that's not in a pill.
Yeah. Go get a walking habit. But other habits too. They're just very, very grounding.
Right. So before we get into the habits, let's talk about how Dr. Brooks defines happiness, because this may be different than what some people imagine. And I just want to say that I usually have this visceral reaction when people talk about be happy and be positive. It feels faux and like happiness, the true emotion of happiness is a fleeting state, right? It's really joy. And it's
Yeah.
not meant to be, we don't live in a state of permanent joy or happiness. It's an emotion that comes and goes. And when we have it, we enjoy it. And then there's struggle and then there's moments of joy. But when Brooks talks about happiness, what he really means are these three components of enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, he talks enjoyment or pleasure. He calls it pleasure too. And I think that's like hyper individual. You know, what gives me pleasure? I mean, we talked about that with our, even our yuck yum therapist, the sex therapist, is that like it's so individual about what, like sitting with a puzzle turns me on. You would want to like pluck your eyebrows out if, you had to sit with a puzzle. So
Yeah.
it's like what, mining out what are those things that really just like give you that feeling of contentment and pleasure.
So I want to just contextualize pleasure a little bit because I did hear him make a distinction that I think is super important. I have a very hedonistic part of self. Like I am no stranger to pleasure. And given my way, I could live a life of just, pleasure. Like if life conspired with me to make that possible. But he does talk about, and this is really important, that it's not just pleasure, like what feels good in the moment, because that can be a very different thing. And our brains are wired to seek pleasure and reduce pain. It's really pleasure, like what you said, Laura, savoring an experience, being present, feeling like fulfilled by what you're doing, feeling at peace, feeling content. So I just want to differentiate that between, getting wasted or
right.
Right. I know you don't mean that, but I think it's easy. Like what gives me pleasure is eating, but that's how I've gotten like 40 or 50 pounds overweight at times. That's not the kind of pleasure. Yes, eating a good meal, but being present, not stuffing your face with potato
is a
chips.
Huge piece of it, right?
Yes.
And having that awareness of, and I think so much of this is like wanting what you have. Like, so like it's, just that feeling like of being totally content with what is.
And paying attention to the small things in your life that bring pleasure in a healthy way.
Yes.
That make you feel good and making sure you're building time and space for those things. Part of pleasure and enjoyment, though, because it's really enjoyment, right? It's activities. It's also people. We'll circle back to that, but let's talk about these other two components.
Okay. So the second one is satisfaction. What do you make of satisfaction?
A sense of purpose. Well, that's really more the meaning, but they're all entwined.
Yeah.
Satisfaction to me is that I work for something. I need to be working towards something. And it doesn't mean I have to be in endless productivity, but to feel like I'm growing and to feel like I'm trying to stretch myself at some stages of life way out of my comfort zone, sometimes maybe only a little bit, but then I'm always learning and growing. So for me, satisfaction comes from a sense of personal growth, of pursuing and fulfilling intellectual curiosity. So I think satisfaction for other people, for our listeners, you might define that differently, although I do think those two things I've mentioned can relate to a lot of people. A lot of people might find satisfaction in those pursuits, but it's going after something and accomplishing, feeling a sense of accomplishment.
I guess the word that kept coming back to me was feeling effective, that you are actually going after something and accomplishing it. Like it's that closing the loop of I went for it, it worked out, I feel so effective. And which kind of makes up forward motion for me. Everybody needs that feeling of like, I don't care how long it takes, I just want to feel like I'm getting somewhere.
Exactly. And you're so right, because that's when people become hopeless and discouraged in our offices is when, and in life, You're trying and you're trying.
And nothing's working.
Nothing, right? You're trying to lose weight and like you are eating right and working out and whatever, and nothing is happening. Or
Yeah.
you're dating and you're on these god awful apps that make you want to die. Everyone's a jerk, right? You try to have a positive attitude and then you get ghosted. It's just when we don't feel some sense of efficacy, like you're saying, we don't feel that satisfied. And we definitely don't feel satisfied with like superficial acquisition or empty stuff.
And people think they will until they get that. And then they quickly move on.
Right. Like I said, when we were sitting in the auditorium listening right before he said it, the hedonic treadmill.
Yes.
That we think, oh, this next thing is going to be the thing that fills me up and then I'll be happy. But what we know about human nature is that once that thing has landed, then you need a new thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really though why we're going to close the loop on this with meaning, right? This is what holds together in my mind enjoyment and satisfaction, is that these pursuits, we have to keep growing and striving. And these pursuits that are satisfying and enjoyable have to have meaning, because without that, it's empty calories, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. And I see this all the time in my office with people who have careers that don't feel that they have a lot of purpose and they don't feel like they have enough meaning in their life. And they're really grappling with it. I also find that it's the people who have the best outcomes mental health wise that can make meaning out of their experiences.
What do you mean the best outcomes mental health wise? Explain that for the listeners. I think I know what you mean, but explain it for me because I might be thinking something else.
It's just people who can take what they've been through and build a story that is kind of like the hero's journey.
Yep.
And it culminates in this sense of like, I know why I kind of understand why this happened. Not even if why, but like that this did happen. Why is tricky.
Right. Because if you get sick or like a car rams into you with a drunk driver, there's no why. I hate the expression. Everything happens for a reason. Do not say that to anyone ever.
Ever.
And definitely don't say it to me. It is the most invalidating, tone deaf. I don't know who put that on a bumper sticker 40 years ago, but
well, people say that when they don't know what to say.
Right. But it's a really
trite little missive.
And it's invalidating because the reality is when you're in the experience, that's not how it feels. And sometimes there is no why. I know there are people who actually believe that. And maybe that if that's comforting for you, great. It's not for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think why is so tricky. But I do think that no matter what happens, that there's always an opportunity for post-traumatic growth.
Yes, to make meaning.
And it's the people who can get there and make meaning.
Yes.
They will have, to me, the better outcomes.
Right.
And the people who feel like there was no meaning in it, no teachable moment, nothing to grow from.
No, you're 100% right. Because the more apt trite expression is making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
We don't know why you have the lemons. They're on your doorstep. You can't control what happens. We know we're going to get lemons, sometimes a whole big bag of them. And we're
basket of
buried
lemons.
under lemons. But it's the people who figure out, you know, this sucked and I'm allowed to feel hurt and shocked and devastated until I don't. Yeah. And I'm going to figure out what I can do with this so that I can still lead a meaningful life and find a way to create satisfaction and enjoyment.
I know. I'll create a lemonade stand.
Right. Or whatever. Yeah, but it's true. That's resilience. And post-traumatic growth, you know, is sort of the opposite. You don't choose post-traumatic stress, but it is a traumatic thing happens. And it doesn't mean, oh, it's so good that it happened or you have to celebrate it, but it means that you find a way to grow from what's happened to you and you can lead an even more enriched life. Plus, this is also how some people take the worst and most tragic, even horrific things, and it becomes a life mission where they then go on to help so many other people.
Yes.
Like Gabby Petito's parents. I watched a little while ago now, the documentary on her, that young girl who was killed in the domestic violence incident out west. Most people probably have heard her name. obviously there's no why there. There's no good why. It's not like her family is going, oh, well, this happened for a reason.
Right. Of course not.
But they've taken this absolute tragedy and they have devoted their resources and time and energy toward getting the word out there for persons of color who don't historically get as much attention in the media. But a lot of people complain, there's another like cute young blonde white girl. She gets all this attention. But like, what about the thousands and maybe even more of women who don't get any media attention? So her family, instead of getting defensive about it, they said, fuck, you're right. We didn't realize this was happening. It's not okay. And they're trying to spread awareness about domestic violence, resources, help cops understand what to look for, and get the word out there that we need to be representing all people who go missing and bring the kind of attention that Gabby got to all of those cases. So my point is, maybe it's not fair to say they're making lemonade, but they're doing something really, really meaningful that could save other people's lives.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's
right?
awesome.
And they don't want to, they wouldn't, I'm sure they would trade it to have their daughter back.
Of course,
right.
Of course. But, I also think back to the set point, I think some people are more programmed to look for meaning or to trend towards meaning than other people. So I think this is something that people need help with very often.
I agree. But I also think, like so many things, it's a muscle, right? There's neuroplasticity in the brain, meaning the brain can change at any time.
Yeah.
And really, if we say one thing in this episode, it's that meaning and purpose are the key to a happier life.
Yes.
When you feel like you know why you're here. Oh, let's talk about that. Because, his two questions.
Yeah, what did we think about this? I thought this was a little too broad and maybe not totally useful for today. So he had two questions.
I just want to mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, he had two questions that he asks his students to answer. Yeah. One of them is, why do you think you're here, right? Why are you here? Why are you here? And the second was, what would you die for? And these students who are, in their early 20s have to grapple with these big questions. And you and I were like, what would we die for? Our kids came up straight away. But what else would you die for, Colette?
So I think it's really interesting to pose the questions and make people think. And he used a story about his own son who was sort of lost and going nowhere. And this kid ended up going into the Marines and going through this whole metamorphosis where when he came home, he could answer the questions. And, for me, at the end of the day, I think, what am I here for? What's my purpose? I think I can get behind that question a bit.
Same. Yeah.
And we're therapists. So we talked about also, we're really lucky that we have a job. There's some really hard things about being a therapist, but we have a job that is so meaningful and you can actually impact people's lives. And it's tremendously rewarding.
I agree.
So we're lucky on that front. What would I die for? That question is tough for me because there is nothing I would die for other than my children, period. Full stop.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think that's a really tough question to ask a bunch of kids in their 20s.
Yeah, I think it's a tough question to ask anyone. We wanted to share it with you guys because, maybe
there's an angle on this that I'm not getting.
Or there are some people who do have that kind of mission, that they would die for their mission. And my hat's off to you. I'm not that way. I'm scared of my own shadow. So unless you're going to hurt my kid, I'm running. I'm running in the other direction.
Same.
But I don't think you have to have an answer to that question to find more meaning and purpose. I do think, and this is where we want to get into, what are some of the habits and practices you can do to really affect that 25-ish% of our lives where our happiness is built on habit? So let's get into those things. We came up with 4 things.
Yeah. One of the key pieces of his thing is transcendence. He's a practicing Catholic. I think he's been to see the Dalai Lama a bunch of times. He's very much that we have to have a spiritual dimension to our lives He says it doesn't have to be organized religion.
Or it doesn't have to be religion at all.
Yeah, no, but it has to be something.
Let me step in and speak for the bad Catholics, because that's the group I'm in. Yeah, I was relieved to hear him say, because he didn't actually introduce the topic. Transcendence wasn't the first word. He started talking about faith, right? And I was going, okay, this is where I'm going to be a little challenged. But whether you see yourself, whether you're devoted to religion and organized religion, I mean, first of all, let me say, anyone who has faith, I admire, I respect, and I envy it in a way. I don't have a blind faith in God or religion. So, but I do have transcendence in my life. So I want to hold that God may play this role, your relationship with God, but it also may come from transcending the ordinary and feeling connected to the universal flow, which I feel very much tuned into.
Yeah. And he used the example of like walking in nature in the woods, and that can be like a transcendent, meditative, spiritual practice.
Right.
So he wasn't harnessing it just in these like tight confines.
But it could look like different things for different people. And I just want to make the bar really low, because it is as simple, perhaps, as walking in nature. And we know actually psychologically, seeing a beautiful vista, experiencing the emotion, awe, that has a transcendent impact on our limbic systems.
Oh yeah, like you heal. Like they've done research studies where they put people in the woods, and like something about your DNA just starts to like heal itself. True. It's pretty impactful.
Right. It's research based. And there was some study years ago, I won't quote it quite right, but they did, an antidepressant, a psychotropic drug versus a 20-minute walk in nature where you could see water. And so the beautiful walk in nature where you could see water had a greater impact on mood than the psychotropic drug. So this stuff's powerful. And what we're saying is, whether it's going to church, connecting with a group of people with whom you feel spiritual, a meditation practice, a walk in nature, painting, sitting and painting, doing a stupid puzzle wouldn't be it for me. Right.
Wow, Colette, stupid puzzle.
I have to like rag on you for the puzzle thing.
Oh my God, I feel so unloved and
unseen.
I
love you so much. And I secretly am just jealous that you can do a puzzle.
Yeah, but it's that flow, right? It's that flow state that's so powerful.
Right. When you're in flow, everything feels good. You're above the mundane. You're out of your head. You're just fully present and alive. Find your thing or things that help you get into that
What's
state.
your thing? What's your thing for that?
Okay, I love to walk. I walk with no music. I like to walk and think. My brain needs space to just be, and I come up with my best ideas. It's part of my writing process. I like to look around. I play the little rainbow game where I notice something red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. I think that's right. Just to make sure I'm present. Like I try to bring myself into the moment. I feel so alive and connected when I do that. I really love that. And then the other, and it's not about the splurginess, but like traveling, going to a new place, even if it's not like a big fancy trip, seeking novelty of experience where I can get curious about people and how things go in a place. I feel really in the flow when I'm in those experiences.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well,
Puzzles?
Painting is what. I mean, yes, actually.
Okay. I just
love my brain feels very like in flow when I'm like sorting rapidly. Maybe this like my neurodivergence popping off. But I also I love to paint. I just found this watercolor thing that I was doing that I had started like a year or two ago. I found it this weekend and I was like, I'm going to finish this. And I got like this whole artistic like thing going, and I had like a bunch of things that I was working on spread out on my coffee, like my dining room table. And my daughter said, I can tell you're happy because you're creating.
Oh, I love that. Right. Creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's right.
No, that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I'm totally teasing you about the puzzle. I think that's an
okay.
amazing thing.
I am so comfortable being me.
I know.
That's the other thing. Are you just comfortable with who you are at this point in life and like happy to be you?
Well, and I think it's chicken and the egg, because the more you do these things,
Yeah.
the more you get comfortable in your own skin, the more comfortable you are in your own skin, the more you prioritize these things. You know, I have to say 2 things occurred to me as you were talking. One is you have that same personality type as my younger daughter, and how the same things that bring you to flow, bring her to flow. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And then also for me, you know, that doesn't really do it for me. That's not really flow for me. I think it's a new adventure. I think it's like exploration.
Yeah.
And then oddly enough, cleaning. I love to clean.
Oh my God. I didn't want to mention that, but I freaking love cleaning. If cleaning paid better, we need to run a cleaning business, an organizing
cleaning actually
business.
does pay well. I thought about
Does it?
Yes. Oh, yes. You can make a lot of money.
Well,
cleaning.
maybe I'm giving it all up because I can be in flow all the time.
Listen, I thought about becoming like starting a business or doing house cleaning or something as an alternative to becoming a therapist when I got divorced.
Did you really?
Yes, I thought about it. Now, the problem is I'm sure you get used to it, but I didn't relish the idea of people's like gross things. But, you know, I didn't know if I wanted to like make that my whole life's focus, or that I could stomach some of what would go with that. But I love to clean, and nothing makes me feel better than
satisfaction.
Than getting
it's satisfying.
It's so satisfying. Everything, every surface, it smells good. Everything's organized. And while I'm doing it, cleaning out my closet is my biggest joy flow state. Throwing
I'm so
things
glad
away.
you just like you made me feel normal for saying that, because I love it. And it hits that like sorting thing that I love from puzzles. Like I love to just like organize very rapidly. Yep. I love it. If hoarders call us, I would love to clean your house.
This is our next job after the 5 other businesses we're starting. You know what it is, Laura, too, on the puzzle thing? It's not that I can actually totally see why the puzzles are satisfying. What it is that when the puzzle opens and it's a lot of pieces, it's so overwhelming for me. It doesn't feel fun. I feel actually like hopeless, and like I don't think the parts of the brain that help start to pay attention to detail and like make sense of the pieces, I don't have the personality for that. So I just get like, fuck it, I hate this. Like they all look the same. Get out of my face. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Let's
Anyway. Okay, wait. So keep going, because I want you to take the next one, because I mean, you're the relationship person. So tell us why relationships matter.
So this is obviously the hugest part. Well, not obviously, I shouldn't say. Obviously, to me at this point, the hugest part of happiness, it's been researched, studied, and proven, is that relationships are this single thing that define not only how happy we are, but how long we live. The Harvard study on adult development, which is an 85-year plus longitudinal study on human nature and what happens over the lifespan, has found that our relationships are the single greatest source of satisfaction, meaning, and enjoyment. And we know loneliness kills, right? Loneliness now kills more people a year than heart attacks, smoking, obesity, all of it. So, it's tough because we're at a time in life where with technology and so many other issues, we're becoming more and more disconnected than ever as a society. And we can do a whole episode on this. In fact, I'm about to do a talk on this very topic. But for today's discussion, let's just focus on invest in your relationships. Doesn't really matter whether you have one person you feel close to or 10. Whatever, you're an introvert, you're an extrovert, you are who you are, but really put some effort and intentionality into maintaining those connections and spending time creating memories and being present with the people you care about who make you feel good, because nothing is going to boost your mood like that.
I totally agree. Totally concur. As an introvert, I still need my close people. I actually came from the university club this morning because I'm giving a talk there on Thursday.
Yeah.
And, it's a place in Winter Park that's for older adults where they get together and they do all kinds of things. They have all these like intellectual groups. They have this library in there that I was like, oh, this is so cool. They do like mahjong. They have a science club. They do Tai Chi. And I'm like, I am so happy that a place like this exists because people need, especially at that age when they get older and their children aren't around or all kinds of, people die. You need people and they're there and they're spending time together. And I'm like, this is awesome.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's community. And one of the primary ways to get more meaning, satisfaction, and enjoyment, the components of happiness from your relationships, is to deepen the conversation.
Yes.
Be present when you're with people. Put your phone away. Tune in. Don't let the conversation settle on like, so how's it going? Right. Or like
Nice
talk about
day.
right,
God,
your
it's
kids'
beautiful.
sporting activities or where they're going to college. That's all great. Share what's happening in your life, but talk about what matters. Open up, be vulnerable, get curious about people, learn how to really listen and ask follow-up questions because that creates connection. And that's what's going to give you that sense of like, I'm not just floating around in the world. I'm connected to other people who matter and I matter to them and they matter to me.
Right. So we just kind of covered their friends and family because he says faith, friends, family. We put that in the relationship bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one final bucket that he says is like super important, and that's work.
Okay. And we kind of talked about that.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's awesome. I think it's crucially important.
So, and this is tough for some of you guys listening, depending on what you consider your work or what you do for work, there are so many people who don't like their jobs. There are some people who don't have a traditional job. So let's not think of this as just a career. This is like, what is your life's work, right? It's back to like the purpose and meaning. What do you just, or do you feel like you're free floating through space, killing off days? That's probably not going to make you super happy. There has to be more than just drifting around or hedonistic pleasure, or conversely, a job where you feel like an indentured servant and you show up every day and punch a clock and you hate what you do.
Yeah.
So what do we want to tell people who are stuck? Some people feel stuck with circumstance, and not everyone's a therapist where they feel like they're changing lives.
And I think with the work piece, I just put creative in front of it. Like everybody should have creative work. And that's like, that can look differently. That can be cooking. That can be your garden. That can be, your writing. That can be anything. So you have your career or you have the things you have to do, but then you should have creative work.
Yeah.
And that's super personal.
I love that you said that because I don't think it has to be your job. Maybe you have a job that you don't love, but you can't leave it for whatever reason. Maybe you will one day. Maybe it'll change. But there are circumstances that are out of our control. But then maybe work takes the form of a hobby, right? Maybe it's something you dabble in. Maybe it's volunteering, but find something that feels like satisfying, meaningful work to you. Doesn't matter how big or little it is. It's got to feel satisfying to you.
Yeah, it's personal.
Yeah, it's really personal. And I think the way to begin to find that, if you don't have that, it's worth it to take the time to get curious. That's where it really starts.
And do an active dabble. And we've talked about that many times.
Right. But the active dabble, just meaning for people who haven't listened, because that was our very first episode.
I feel like we talk about that all the time, but maybe we don't.
It's so huge. Like you may have to be on a little bit of a journey to figure out, what do I actually give a shit about?
Right. Yeah. And that should be part of the happiness program too, is that
I agree.
Every now and again you have to go into that phase.
Right. Because a lot of people will say to me now that I'm doing so many things, oh, but these are things you were meant to do. And, you seem so confident. And no, maybe it seems like that now. It didn't seem like it to me. And I spent about 2 years with absolutely no clue what else I wanted to do with my life, feeling like I needed something else for purpose and satisfaction, but not knowing what it was. And during that time, it didn't always feel comfortable. Remember that day that I said to you, I have absolutely no talents whatsoever? Remember that?
You said that to me?
You don't remember that?
When was that?
Not that long ago. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where I was like, the bummer is I
Wow.
wish I was somebody who had
Yeah,
a talent, but I have no talents.
that's funny.
right. And I just felt
That's
so
a perspective
like,
issue.
yeah. So the point is, it's a journey, and it might be that you arrive at, I don't know, something so like you want to make little wood carvings in your kitchen and prop them on the windowsill. It might be that you want to start a whole new career, where you take a huge pay cut, but do something that's mission driven. Who knows? But whatever it is, give yourself permission to explore, because you may be amazed by what you discover about yourself that once felt impossible.
And you know what I want to take us back to just quickly?
Yeah.
Because we got to land our plane here. I was typing up the risks of autonomy worksheet because I wanted to have it in a better form.
Yes, and we're going to have that on our website, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
It'll be a download that you guys can get. It is so good.
Insightsfromthecouch.org.
Right.
We're going to have a worksheet from today's episode and all the others, including this amazing thing Laura's referencing, calling the risks of autonomy. Go on.
Yeah, and it's this guy who writes about basically if you do not like your life, it is your responsibility. So I think what goes along with happiness is accepting responsibility for your happiness and your life.
Yep.
And that there's so much that you can affect and change and do if you're willing to kind of go through the process.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So focus on what you can control.
Yep.
Stop beating yourself up and get curious. Accept what is there that you can't control, because there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
Not a goddamn thing.
Right. But what you do have agency over is your mindset, your attitude, your willingness to be an eternal student who is curious and open and exploring life. And you're going to look for those things that may come out of nowhere that you never saw coming, that light you up, that feel meaningful, that bring you to flow, that connect you with other people, and build more of that into your life, because to some degree, happiness is a choice.
Yes. It's hard to accept, but it's true.
Yep.
It's not going to land on you. You got to go get it.
You got to make it happen. All right. Well, let's wrap up on that note. So again, we will have a download with the nuggets of wisdom that all really come from Arthur C. Brooks, professor at Harvard, based on today's episode. And we've got lots of more worksheets and accompaniments to all of our episodes, including this very powerful piece on taking responsibility.
So good. You're going to want it on your refrigerator.
It's amazing. I had it on my refrigerator for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Everyone
It's amazing.
should
Have it.
So check out our website at insightsfromthecouch.org.
If you like what you heard, and I hope that you did, rate and review our podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell your friends. Send the episodes around. This is how we get out. And we hope you got a bunch of insights from our couch today. Take care.
Yes, thank you all for listening. See you soon.